All right, good afternoon and welcome to Shulchan Aruch Yomi. Today's Siman Mem Zion number 47, Orach Chaim. A lot of people, maybe their favorite Siman in all of Orach Chaim. If you like Torah, you like this Siman. It's about Birchas HaTorah. There's only one Siman about it, about Birchas HaTorah. It's a bracha we make every morning. According to most Rishonim, it's actually two different brachas combined. One is presumably the Rabbana and the second is the Oraisa. We're going to talk more about the difference between these two brachos in Iyun with Iyun HaShulchan Aruch, where I explain some of the nuances in halacha in the poskim based on this idea. We'll explain the difference between Simchas HaTorah and Shavuos. We got everything, a little bit of everything for you today. Let's start. Sif Aleph says, Birchas HaTorah Sarach Lizar B'Ma'od. You have to be very careful of Birchas HaTorah. This Shulchan Aruch is coming based on a Gemara in Adorim. The Gemara says the land was destroyed because they didn't lo birchu Torah tchila, and the Ran says it's not just they didn't make a brachas Torah before they learned; it's that they weren't learning lishma. That's what the Ran says. But the simple explanation, lo birchu Torah tchila, is that they learned Torah without making a brachas Torah, and that's the Gemara says. You have to be very careful to make brachas Torah, whether brachas Torah is a brachas hanenin, right? Your nana from Divrei Torah, or it's just a berachas ha-mitzvah, that you're doing a mitzvah. That we'll talk about more. Beis sarach levarech bein lemikra, bein lemishnah, bein legemara. Whatever you're learning, whether you're learning chumash, whether you're learning mishnayos, learning gemara, you have to make the bracha. Haga bein lemedrash. The Ramah is also a medrash, which explains the mikra. And the Mishnah Berurah says the mechaber didn't mean to exclude medrash; he included that in mikra. Gimel hakoseh b'derei Torah afal pi she'eino korei sarich levarech. Let's say you get up in the morning and you want to write Divrei Torah. You're one of these people that have big notebooks, like I did. I used to have big notebooks, writing all my chidushim down. I still have those notebooks. None of the chidushim that I wrote down, any of those, are being given over in my Ian Shiurim over here. It doesn't mean you shouldn't write them down. It just means that, they're rudimentary when you're writing them down when you're younger, and it gives you the ability, when you make half chidushim when you're younger, to make full chidushim when you're older. So don't stop writing it down if you're younger. Write it down. But you don't have to save all of them because the writing itself is enough. It's going to sharpen your mind. Then one day you'll be older, you'll be able to give over orally the Torah. So, if you write Divrei Torah, you have to make a bracha because writing is not worse than saying Divrei Torah. There are poskim. Mishnah Berurah brings achronim that say maybe you shouldn't rely on the mechaber. If you want to make the brachas Torah, then just write Divrei Torah. Right, and that's all you're going to do. We're going to see maybe you have to learn Torah right after the bracha, or not right after the bracha. That's a machlokes. But assuming you have to learn Torah right after the bracha, so you shouldn't write Divrei Torah, because some poskim say that writing is like thinking about Divrei Torah, which is the next halacha. You have to make a bracha on thinking Divrei Torah without actually speaking, saying the word. Dalad amahara b'Divrei Torah eno sarich levarich. You just think about Divrei Torah in your mind. You don't have to make a bracha. It's famous, the Ber Halacha, which is the in-depth Chaim, his in-depth explanation of the Mishnah Berurah of the Shulchan Aruch. He brings the famous sheet of the Gra. The Gra says that even though the reason that you don't have to make a bracha for here is because here lavka dibur dami, thinking is not like speaking, and the mitzvah of Torah is to speak the Divrei Torah. But he says there's a mitzvah, Agisa B'Yom V'Layla. There's a mitzvah, it says in Sefer Yeshua, at the beginning of Sefer Yeshua, to think about Divrei Torah. That's presumably most mafarshim there say, most commentaries say, is to think about Divrei Torah. So therefore, there's a mitzvah. Part of the mitzvah is lahagos b'Divrei Torah, to think about Divrei Torah. So you would make a bracha on that. But the Mishnah Berurah says that most posts can disagree with this. The Ramah says, "Who adin liyachal lifsok din below nestinas." If you're a judge and you want to give a court case, you want to give a psak halacha, or you're a rav, you want to give a psak halacha, that is not called learning Torah, because as we're going to see, quite a lot of poskim, you have to understand what you're doing, and to just give, just say mutter or asr, it's not necessarily understanding what you're doing. Halacha hey, berachas Torah, shirk shalom savazvanu al divrei Torah v'hariv no v'asher b'charbanu. Right? If you look in the Sidurim, if you have said this bracha before, there's three parts of the bracha. There's the first, Shaki Shalom Al Azok B'Divrei Torah. V'harif no, which is a continuation we're going to see of the first bracha. And the second bracha, V'ashar bachar banu, that according to everybody is Del Raisa. We know by Kriyas Torah, you say that bracha, Asher bachar banu kol minu nasan Torah. So that is Del Raisa. The first bracha is subject whether it's Del Raisa also or it's Rabbanan. Vav ha'omer v'hariv im vav. You say vav because the vav is a continuation of the first bracha. Hagav yishon below vav. Some say without a vav, and they say that no, that it's actually a separate bracha, and it's just called smucha l'chavertas. Doesn't need a bracha. Hariv no, it doesn't need a baruch atah Hashem in front of it. V'chei nagu aval yoser tov lomar bevav. The conclusion of the Ramah is better to stay with the vav, which is how we do it, because basically it's all one bracha, so it's two brachas in total, not three. Zayin brachas avas olam, and therefore you also shouldn't say amen. Meaning, if you hear someone saying asher b'chavanu, he says shakshan also b'divrei Torah. Before v'hariv, you shouldn't say an amen. If someone's being motzi in the bracha, you should wait till after the v'hariv to say the amen, and then the second asher b'chavanu would say amen on that. Zayin brachas avas olam, hoteres brachas Torah im lamad miyad b'li hefsek. Avas Olam, or that's for the Sfardim, Avas Avarabo, which we say in the morning, exempts you from Berachas Torah. So if you didn't say Berachas Torah in the morning and you started davening, you said Avarabo, and then you learned, the Gemara says in Brachos Yud Aleph, you learned after your davening. It doesn't mean you learn before Kriya Shema. It means you finish davening entirely. That's not considered a hefsek. It's all part of davening. After you're done with Aleinu, or after the Shir Shal Yom, so then you learn something. You don't have a hefsek. You don't start talking in between. That counts as Berachas Torah b'diavad. So if you have a suffix whether you said Berachas Torah or not, so you could rely on this to be able to with Avarabba. Some say that the limud actually could be just saying Kriya Shema, because Kriya Shema you see right after Avarabba is Divrei Torah. It's not so clear though if it is. So if you didn't say Berachas Torah and you said Avarabba, so you should make sure to learn after davening is over. If you didn't learn after davening is over, some say you could be the Kriya Shema itself was motzi you the learning afterwards. But if you, none of these, if you want to be machmir, right? There is makom to be machmir. The poskim are not very clear about this. I was personally told by my Rebbe a number of times where I did daven and I didn't learn right afterwards, and I was unsure if I was able to say Berachas Torah. He said to go to another minyan in a shtiblach or whatever. I think it was in Har Nof at that point. Go to a shtiblach over there. I think I went to the shtiblach. I kept on asking people. He said Berachas Torah. He said Berachas Torah. I think I asked 100 people, and they all told me they said Berachas Torah. And I don't know what happened. If I ever was Yosei or not that day. God should forgive me that day. I don't know what happened. To go to the shtiblach where hundreds of people say everyone already said Berachas Torah, because most people say actually in the morning. My personal minute was to say in the morning when I woke up. I would say Asher Yasser L'Kain Shama, and I said Berachas Torah, because normally before davening I would learn before davening, either in thinking and learning according to the Groyak Mekabracha, or I would actually learn Divrei Torah. Sometimes I woke up like 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I went to sleep like 9, 10 o'clock. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and learn like Moshe Feinstein from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock for a minyan. Yeah, there was a point I was like Moshe Feinstein. Not anymore. All right. Ches. Usually stopping Isagi Bekori Kriya Shema. Oh, sorry, we did the Ches. Test. Usually Omrshim Hifsik and Berachas Torah Limudo and Bekach Klum. If you stop between Berachas Torah, right? We talked about saying Our Rabbah, you can't have a hefsek. But when it comes to the regular bracha Berachas Torah, you said the bracha, you're just not sure if you learned right away. That's not a problem. Because it's only by Avarabba you have to learn right afterwards. That's not really Berachas Torah. We're not sure if your kavanah was for Berachas Torah. When your kavanah is to say Berachas Torah, your kavanah is to be the mitzvah, you don't have to learn because it's going on the limud Torah you can do the whole day. The best thing is all the hafsik beinayim. The Chaim or Parshas Berachas Kohanim, Samach Berachas Torah, as you see in the Siddur, you say Berachas Kohanim right after. You say everything. You say Mikra, Mishnah, and Gemara. You say a little bit after Berachas Torah in order to make sure you're able to that you learn Torah right after Berachas Torah. Because if it's a Berachas Mitzvah, right? If it's a Berachas Mitzvah, or even it's a Berachas Nenin, technically you're supposed to do it right away, right? It's a hefsek, say Shahakol, and you don't drink a cup of water, you make a hefsek, right? It ruins your bracha. Say Berachas Mitzvah, right? A lulav, you're not supposed to be mafsek between the bracha and shaking the lulav. So it's not really clear by Berachas Torah if the same thing applies, but the Chachila or Machmir that you should learn right away. Yud, Mifsik melilmo b'nisasik b'asakov. Let's say you made one bracha in the morning and you started going to work. It's interesting svar. This is, I believe, Tosos says, the Rosh and the Re B'Shem Rabbeinu Tam. This is quoted in Tosos on the Fid Aleph and Brachos. Your das is right. Everyone comes back. I think it's a famous dictum in Moser Shmuzin. People say you're always going to come back. They bring this in this Tosos. You're always going back to your learning. Your learning is your life, right? You're going to work, but you just going to make money. You'll be back learning. You go to the bathroom. You go to the spa. You go to the mikvah. You take a nap, right? We're talking about Shenas Ara here on the Stender. On your bed, will be something else. We'll see the next halacha. These things are not considered a hefsek, and therefore you don't have to make another brachas Torah, because your das is always, just like when you take off your tefillin, your das is to put them back on. You take off talis, your das to put it back on. It's not considered a hefsek because your das is to go back to learning. However, if you sleep on your bed, and I think the post can say for an hour on your bed, that's considered a hefsek. It says the minhag, the Shulchan Aruch says, is not going to say considered a hefsek. That the Mishnah Berurah brings that a lot of poskim are very mahmir about this. That you would need to say a bracha, and he says lo hifsid. If you say make on the bracha lo hifsid, it actually seems in the Mishnah Berurah that you should make on the bracha if you took a long nap on your bed. You'd be afim lamad but laila, even if you learned that night. Halayla holech achar yom, right? You don't have to make on bracha. When it says kachavim, you don't have to make a no bracha. Shavar ve'eno sarach lachzor levarach chol man shelo yashan. As long as you didn't take sleep on your bed. Everyone agrees though, if you went to sleep at night for the night, so then even if you woke up, you went to sleep for half an hour, and it's now 10 o'clock at night, you have to make a new bracha, because the night with sleeping for sure is considered a hefsek. Yud Gimel hamashkim kodem or hayom lomon mevarach brachas Torah. Now the cutoff point usually is chatzos. So if you went to sleep at night, right? Well, it's not exactly right. If you woke up at 11 o'clock at night, you'd have to make another bracha because you slept on your bed. But now you go to sleep for the night, and you wake up before alos hashachar. So what did she do? Right? If you made the bracha, you went to sleep early in the night at 8 o'clock at night. You woke up at 11 o'clock at night. So you make another brachas Torah, and then you're gonna have to make another brachas Torah. It's not going to cover you for the next day. When is it going to start covering you? I think from chatzos at night. From chatzos at night, when you wake up and you after chatzos, halacha chatzos, then you make a brachas Torah. So that covers you for the next day, even though you went back to sleep. So you're invited to call say the bracha. Not only that, you can make all the brachos. Because that's basically a bracha on the recognition of dawn. You have to, it's only supposed to bring korbanos from alos hashachar. Now you should wait till the day. The Mishnah Berurah also brings that al-kai neshama and mavir shena. You also should wait to say with shema malchus. You should wait until the day to say those brachas till it becomes alos hashachar. Before you make the bracha, you should wash your hands if you want to sleep, right? Because we say according to the Rosh, your hands are dirty. If you don't have water, you can learn without antila, as long as you wipe your hands on something that cleanses them. The halacha is women. They make brachas Torah. Your wife or your daughter or any woman that comes to you and asks you to make brachas Torah, Allah Shulchan Aruch says brachas Torah. Why? So that's machlokes in the Bir halacha. Either because women are also obligated to limud Torah, they have to learn the halachas that apply to them, nida and halakas neiros and havrashas chala, all those things, and snius, of course. They have to learn the whole book of snius, that huge book, Oz V'Hada Lehusha. I think that's what it's called by a rabbi from Gateshead, I think it was, by Falk or something like that. Huge book. You gotta learn that entire book. So you gotta learn those halachas. I'm joking a little bit because a lot of the halachas are big chumras, but there are essential halachas, the snius. They have to learn those things. So since they have to learn those halachos, so they're chayiv in the mitzvah of Torah. And others argue, no, it's a mitzvah seishas mangrama, women are potter. But just like other mitzvah seishas mangrama, nashim are mavarchos, we paskin, the Ramah paskins, you're allowed to make a bracha, because you also get schar, a little bit of schar, the Ran says, for the completion of the mitzvah, even though you're not obligated. So therefore, there's reason to make a bracha, not because you're chayiv to make a bracha, just because, even though you're potter, there's still an Indian to make a bracha, mitzvah seishas mangrama. We're going to talk more about this machlokes in Iyun Shulchan Aruch. We talk more about the fundamental the difference in the two major brachos, Torah, you're not going to want to miss it. See you there.